Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Harry Muppet. Welcome back to a fan cast. I don't know. There's like a fan game where basically sometimes people send me replays, I cast them, and sometimes I play like a 2v2 with somebody else who's a fan, and I'm not sure which one's a fan game and which one's a fan cast. But regardless, this is a bunch of replays sent in by Mr. Coldsteel. And yeah, he sent me 2 replays, this one and another one, which I will be casting later on. And it's going to be awesome. So it's a ZvZ. Mr. Coldsteel up the top left side of the map is going for a hatch first build by the looks of it. His opponent down the bottom right side of the map, Mr. Sonykiller, is going to be going for a pool first build. And I gotta say, Sonykiller, very, very cool name, because I just bought a pair of like Sony earphones like 2 weeks ago. Sony used to make really awesome earphones. I used to buy them all the time. They're beautiful. And the new ones are just absolutely crap. Absolutely ick. So I'm going to have to find a new brand for buying headphones or earphones because, very, very sweet dodge there. Does get past that guy. And yeah, both players just getting their tech up. So we got the pool coming out. We got the gas coming out. Just about to finish those guys over, and it's a general sort of ZvZ sort of slow start. Yeah, it usually ZvZ, it does heat up, but I should mention this actually straight away. Silver, both of these guys are in Silver League, so it's good that I saw that at the start of the replay because I wasn't sure when he sent me the replays what league he is in, so it's good to know the league, what's going on here, because then we can set our expectations at the correct level. So Coldsteel going for a macro hatch in the main base. Very, very interesting. That's, yeah, I suppose he's probably not confident enough to go out for a full third base out here somewhere. Just wanted to play a little bit safe, but at the same time get that extra macro going on, which is fine. This macro hatchery, yeah, 300 mils is usually where people, like Masters level, dump out the queens, but he's obviously deciding not to go for queens in this game, going instead for, macro hatch. We'll see what he can make out of it. Let's have a look. We do have the queens coming up from Mr. Sonykiller, and these lings are straight on this queen, and it does look like the queen is going to get owned there. No way for it to get out. And Coldsteel still with enough lings to take out some of the other lings, but with the queen coming out, he's going to have to fall back. And that's about it. So having to build another queen there, has lost one already, which I'm sure he's not happy about. Upgrades wise, nothing really too much. Sonykiller getting the ling speed, which is nice. Coldsteel just pumping up the workers as much as he can. Nobody really taking an advantage, but we'll have to see. No queens coming out yet, so I guess this hatchery is just to increase the macro without having to use queens, which, to be honest, I mean, I've had this thought myself, to be honest, because I don't like queens. Eventually I found out a good way of making sure that I used queens effectively, and I think I talked about it in one of my latter videos while I was playing Zerg. But if you don't, if you're still in like Bronze or Silver League or something like that, it's very, very hard to constantly keep those queens spawning lava. And it's just that extra level of macro that, Bronze and Silver League players can have a bit of difficulty with. So if you're having difficulty and you know it, and you either got to practice to get that stuff running, or you just choose another way, which is this macro hatch, which I assume this is what the macro hatch is for, because, yeah, at this stage, queens would probably be more effective if you know how to use them. So he's going for a roach warren though. We do have roaches coming out for both players. I do believe Sonykiller had a roach warren out a fair bit shorter, but hasn't really been building roaches. The worker numbers are starting to favour Coldsteel. He's been pushing out a little bit there, which is nice. We've got the baling nest. We've got a couple of spine crawlers out the front. Roaches trying to get within range of those lings, but not really working out. It looks like they're going to go around here. It's a horrible idea from Sonykiller, but he runs straight out again, which is nice to see, so he doesn't stick around and get all of his lings destroyed. A couple of overlords over there, keeping a scout out for the third base. coldsteel continuing to pump out a ton of workers. Sonykiller is doing similar stuff. Both players, I like the way. Remember, we are playing a Silver League game here, so the fact that they're both pushing out this many workers tells me that there's some strong focus on macro here. I cannot count the amount of time I've seen silver players get up to 20 workers, and then all they do is build military units, and in the end they just get completely over macroed. So the fact that they're continuing to build workers is a very, very good sign, but oh man, that's a lot of lings out for Mr. Sonykiller. He's looking pretty good on the army size. Coldsteel got a little bit caught out there, maybe pushed a little bit too far ahead and just got surrounded by lings. So he's going to have to push out nice and hard. He does have the income advantage, so I don't think he's out of it yet. But we'll see. We'll just have to see how it goes and what these guys get up to. We got some upgrades coming out from Mr. Sonykiller, so sounds like he has a good idea on what he should be going for. We got the lair, we've got speed. He hasn't been doing speed too much, but he hasn't been having a whole lot of lings anyway, so I think it's mainly a roach focus from Mr. Coldsteel. But yeah, that army size is definitely still ahead for Mr. Sonykiller. Goes out, checks the third base, goes straight back to the rocks, and with the roaches out, should be able to do a lot better job. Here's another macro hatchery for Mr. Coldsteel. Another is macro hatching all over the place. This guy really, really doesn't want to use queens. He wants the macro, but he doesn't want to use queens. So yeah, I mean, if it works, it works. A bunch of lings attacking here. No idea if they'll be able to make it happen. The lings going in, getting a little bit screwed over in that gap. That attack move onto the spine crawler definitely didn't work out. So the lings are not going to be much of a threat. The roaches are sort of juking it out here, but with the spine crawler, I don't think it's going to happen here. Sonykiller had more, but the lings really didn't. They sort of got screwed over quite a bit. And the roaches, yeah, the spine crawler really, really made themselves useful in that battle, and there was just, spaces were too tight for anything to really happen. But I'm loving the macro that Sonykiller has going on at the moment. You can tell this guy has been watching a decent amount of high-level games. You can see he's got the third base coming out now. He's got a ton of roaches coming in. He's got 1-1-1. It's slower than a Masters level player would do it, but granted, this guy is doing a lot of good things. The only thing, I mean, is looking at him, it's just like, yeah, this is the same sort of stuff I'd expect to see a Master level player. The only thing is, he's going a lot slower, and he's really not keeping up on his macro. Coldsteel, the macro is superb so far. He's not pushing out crazy amount of macro, but he's only on 2 bases, so 44 workers making it happen. Sonykiller really needs to push those worker numbers. But at the same time, he's getting a ton of roaches. He's really, really re-macroing up nice and hard. He's got level 1-1 here. So Sonykiller is going to be doing a pretty good job here. But we'll have to have a see, because there's a bit of a concave on Coldsteel's side, and the roach numbers are almost identical out there. So I think 1-1 is going to help, but 2 roaches running off, so that's probably not going to help. Let's see. I think the 1-1 is going to take the advantage here. Remember, the blue player has the 1-1. There we go. So it's just starting to come out. But just as he's congratulating himself for that beautiful, beautiful play, getting the upgrades, moving out, the mutas start to come out. So Coldsteel, with that macro, with that tech switch, has completed it. And Sonykiller just going for a lair, is going for some roaches as well. Roaches, not a bad idea. I mean, this is exactly the same as at a Masters level. You got to keep the pressure on your opponent. You do not want to let those mutas just go to town. He's getting the spore crawlers, he's getting the lair. His Sonykiller, man, is doing everything right except for this income. That's the only thing he's not doing right. And if he had that income under control, I think he would be an absolute giant in this game. But for now, Coldsteel has the worker numbers, has the worker advantage, 44 over 28. He's building mutas like there's no tomorrow. He's going to have a little bit of trouble if he goes out to harass, because there will be spore crawlers out there, but I think he might just be able to macro his way through it. And the third base actually has nothing. That's surprising. I would have thought he'd build a couple of spore crawlers over there. He's got 2 over there, not building them near the workers, interestingly enough. He's covering this side, but on the back side, there we go, there's 1 on the back side. This guy kind of exposed the mutas sit here. They're going to be able to snipe workers all they want, and the spore's not going to be able to do too much about it. But Coldsteel may just go in for a straight up army A-move win here because he's got enough muta numbers. Sonykiller doesn't have any anti-air other than queens. He's continuing to put the pressure on though. The spine crawlers are going to have their work cut out for them, and the lings, yeah, all over the place. They're kind of doing some damage. They're not doing a lot. Roaches coming in. The mutas just beating them there. And the roach numbers are going to go down, but we've got the Hydra Dean coming out. We've got the Spire coming out from Mr. Sonykiller. So far, he has held off and made sure that the mutas have not been able to get into his base. But I don't know if he's going to get the Hydras up in enough time to actually keep these mutas off. I think the mutas might just go in there and just start owning stuff. I mean, there's... yeah, I don't know. What does coldsteel have to do to win at this point? He has to kill a critical amount of workers. So in Sonykillers, he's got 29. He's got enough to go. He's got a beautiful set of spore crawlers all over there. But there are gaps, obviously, in his defense. This one, the bottom right side, that's a bit of a pain. If he starts to lose critical worker numbers, then he might be screwed. Because he's already behind on the macro as it is. And his army is already looking a bit shoddy. The only way he can really deal with this is beautiful counters. Beautifully countering the mutas. The Hydra Den is down, the Spire is down. He's building mutas of his own. Not so sure about this. I mean, mutas are good. They cost so much gas. And the Hydras, I think, would be a much better counter against the mutas at this point in the game. Because he really, really needs to counter those mutas. There's just no way around it. He's building some Hydras, building some mutas. His lack of macro is really starting to hurt him, though. It's a critical point of the game where he really needs to get out a lot of counters fast to deal with these guys, and his macro his lack of macro, I suppose, is just hurting him so much. And meanwhile, coldsteel is getting at 13 mutalisks. So he's pushed up to 59 out of 29. So Sonykiller, the name of the game is you do everything right except you don't build enough workers. And I think that's it. He's just not going to have the macro to outlast coldsteel and coldsteel's insane amount of mutalisks. He's going to have 28 mutas, and that's going to be enough to destroy almost anything in this game. We do have 7 Hydras coming out, and the Hydras, we'll see how they do. Coming out at the moment, you do not want to let the Hydras get surrounded by lings. That's going to be bad news. The Hydras need to be concentrating on the mutas fully. Most of the lings are down. The Hydras are starting to have a good try, but I think it may just be too late. There we go. Just too many mutas, too much macro. Not even any upgrades on the mutas, but the numbers were just more than enough. And I think, yes, 2-2 on those Hydras, but man, when you need to have everything, and Sonykiller had everything bar one, and coldsteel just beautiful macro. That's all he needed. Didn't need to worry about upgrades, didn't need to worry about like countering the Hydras or anything like that. Just got the macro going and just overwhelmed him. So anyway, that's it. That is game number 1, and coldsteel played another game between another player. It's a ZvT, I think. So that will be coming up in a little while. Stay tuned. This has been Harry Muppet. I hope you enjoyed this fan game, and as always, feel free to send me lots of replays. I will be very, very happy to cast them. Jeez. 4th base over here as well. His worker numbers, he's still continuing to pump these out. I think he's, I don't know how he's still going. Is there, I don't know, maybe he just didn't quit. I was thinking there could be somebody casting it, but that's, I don't know if there's anybody streaming this game, so I think he just hasn't left the game. He just wants to destroy everything. Alright, I'll see you guys in just a bit.